This is a video tutorial for the equation editor tool. The first thing to really make sure students understand is that the equation editor tool is not a calculator and will not figure out math problems for them, even though when you see it, you'll see it kind of looks like a calculator. So you can find this tutorial or the tutorial that's provided. I just find it by typing in equation editor tool in Google, and then you can easily find this tutorial and actually work through it, have your students work through it so that they can get familiar with how to move things around. So I'm just going to show you what's on it, explain a few things. So it starts out really easily. All they have to do is copy what's here. They're not doing math, they're just copying it so they can get familiar with the buttons and things on the equation editor tool. So here's what it looks like. It does kind of look like a calculator, but it's not. And there's a few buttons on here that students need to learn about. Like, see that big black dot? That's multiplication. And the reason for that is because you'll see later in the higher grades, they use the X for, like in algebra, X and Y. So to eliminate that confusion, the dot is used for the multiplication, but the younger kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th, they're not gonna know that unless you explain it to them. They can use the keyboard on their regular keyboard with the computer if they want to. Anything you can do here, you can also do with your keyboard. So it's just a matter of preference, and students can go back and forth if they want to. You can click in here, and I'm looking over here, it says click on the answer box, press or click on 3. So I can type 3, or I can push 3. I can backspace on my keyboard, or I can use this to erase. Here's undo, here's redo. These are the forward and backward arrows, which you can also use on your keyboard. Okay, so click on plus, press or click on 5, equals, and 8. And that's it. And then over here, press to see how you did. You click there and it'll say whether or not they did it right or if they have to fix something. If they do something wrong, like if I take off the answer and I click here, sorry, not this time, but try again, all they have to do is close it, fix it, check it, and it's back to being right again. So it's not like a test or anything. Let them know this is not a quiz or a test in any way. It's just to make sure that they are familiar with all the buttons on here. So I'm going to go to the next one. See, it gets a little more complicated. With this one, younger kids look at this and they're like, oh no, and really all they have to do is practice going back and forth with the arrows, either with their keyboard arrows or with the arrows on the equation editor tool. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Don't change anything, just go back and forth. Next one, deleting. You can see up here what skill they're practicing. Deleting, they want them to practice with the delete tool on here, because it is the editor you're practicing with more than the keyboard. And then dragging over a couple things at once and deleting them all at once. And that's that. This practicing using the parentheses. So clicking in the top one, you can use the parentheses button, okay, and then everything that you type in there or press in there, 3 plus 5, and then the dot for times, and then 6. Okay. So if you didn't use the equation editor tool, then you would have to actually type the first. Oh, actually no, I did Control 9 and it put them both there. I thought it was just going to do the left-hand side, but it does do both of them. So 3 plus 5, and then I wonder if I push X. No, nothing happens when I push X on my keyboard. And there is no multiplication button on the keyboard. So I guess for multiplication they actually do have to use the equation editor tool because X is not working on here. Okay, so getting out of parentheses. Okay, so 3 plus 5 times 6, and they want them to learn how to get out of parentheses, so using the arrow, getting out of the parentheses. Okay, they want the 6 to be outside. So you can drag over two things at once, or a whole equation, and then click and the parentheses goes around it. Okay, which is what they wanted to show on the last one. You can drag over just a part, it's selected, and then when you push parentheses, it's in parentheses. So that's on parentheses. Notice that you can click here and go to specific areas in the equation editor tool tutorial. So if you get halfway through on one day and then you come back the next day, you don't have to start from the beginning. You just open it up and then go straight to where you left off. The fraction tool, you can either click in a box and type on your keyboard 3 and then slash and then 5, okay? Or you can use the fraction tool, which is these two boxes, a box on the top for the numerator, the bottom for the denominator. Click, and then they just click and put the numbers where they go. And you can move out of the fraction by using the arrow, or you can just click with your mouse. Sometimes that's the easiest thing to do. So you want to make sure that you show students that they need to get out of the fraction before they type +4, because there's a big difference between this, okay, and this. See? So show them the difference. It'll be a mistake if they don't get out of the fraction, and that'll be in the test too. They need to make sure that they're typing the right things in the right places. Mixed numbers, again, getting out of a fraction. So you type a 2, and then you can push slash. But notice I didn't. Pressing the space bar also gets them out of there. So I'm going to undo that. Undo 2, and then space, and then the slash, and there's a fraction next to it, and then 1 on the top, go down, and 4. Okay, but actually instead of the space bar, I prefer just doing the fraction button here. Instead of pressing the arrow, I prefer just clicking my mouse. But it's students' preferences, as long as they are careful and check that they're typing what they mean to be typing. Exponents is this button right here, exponent button. So 2, and then exponent button, and then 5. Okay, and getting out of the exponents, again, same thing. You want to click out or use the arrow key. There's a big difference, and make sure you show your students this. There's a big difference between this and this. Big difference. Okay, this is just practice where they copy exactly what they see here. It's practicing what they had already learned. It's using all these different buttons. The bottom one's going to be the most complicated, so I'm going to work through that one. Okay, this whole part here, the first part is a fraction, so I'm going to push my fraction button first. Then I'm going to put X. Then notice that 3 minus 2 is an exponent, so I'm going to do the exponent button. And it's in parentheses, so I'm going to do parentheses. 3 minus 2. And on the bottom I have a 4. Click out of the fraction, equals, and then fraction. 1, 4. Okay, so you've got your fraction, exponents, parentheses, almost everything. Okay. Going on to higher grades, you're going to be using the square root button, which is right here. Okay, so 3, click on the square root button. That shows up. 5. Oh, I forgot to type the 3. See, I forgot to do it, but you can still just click in front of it. You don't have to erase everything. So, and then 5 plus 4. If I want the whole thing under there, I want to make sure that I am not out of the square root. There we go. See, before I got out of it, there's a big difference between that and, I'm going to take it away, get out of the square root, and then plus 4. So that's another thing to practice. moving out of fractions or square roots or exponents. Students need to know that there's a big difference. Trigonomic functions, I have no idea anymore because it's a long time since high school and that's the last time I looked at this. But notice that you could type COS or click on the cosine button. So there, type pi or click on the pi button. There. Click on plus and then 5. Wait, they wanted the number 3. Okay. 3 pi plus 5. Okay, so even though I don't understand what I'm doing here, it's not too hard to just copy what they want to be done over here. Okay, and then there's practice. And that's it. That's everything with the equation editor tool.